Hey people, so I'm going to go over what we did for this project. We had 3 edits where we're using masks and blend modes and some other things to superimpose images over skin. So the first one we did back, we were superimposing an image over a portrait by creating a mask on the portrait layer and moving the mask to an image layer, and changing the blend mode to multiply and changing the layer opacity. So just to kind of show you what that might look like. I'm gonna delete this. So we got a portrait. This is just like a standard HD sized canvas in Photopea. And this is our portrait. We're going to superimpose an image over her face. So let's first get that image in here. Let's do broken glass. For broken glass. Hopefully it'll come in. So while that's loading, because that's been taking forever recently, I'm going to mask her face. So, oh, there it is. Let me turn that off for a second. So back on the portrait layer, right, I'm just going to use the magic cut. So select magic cut. And the idea is to paint a little bit of green in her face and then everywhere else red, just so we get her face and not everything, like her scarf. So let's make the brush a little bit bigger. Remove all the green from around her scarf and close to her scarf. Oh, there's a little piece up here. All right, so that looks actually pretty good. The trick with this is once you do the magic cut, you need to change this setting up here to raster mask. That's how you're going to actually get the mask. So new layer would cut it to a new layer, or copy it to a new layer. Selection would just make a selection. We want the masks because we're going to move the mask from one layer to the other. So hit raster mask, hit OK, and now you see everything's pretty much gone except for her face. And so we want the glass, right, to be basically just over her face. I'm going to hold down Option, Command, and T to transform this, make it a little bit smaller so we can get all that detail. All right, so that like just covers her face, right? And all we're doing is taking the mask and moving it onto the broken glass or the image layer. So you gotta make sure that you're selected on the mask and not the image. So that's the mask right here. Just clicking and dragging it over to the broken glass. And now, you know, there's no mask on her. The mask is on this layer with the broken glass. And so it's kind of hiding everything around that her face that's outside of her face, outside of the mask. If you wanted to move the image individually of the masks, like right now, if you try to move it, it's going to move together. So, whoops, let's put that back. You want to like rearrange like the image without moving the mask. You have to like unclick this little linked icon right there. Now I can move that mask around. I can even transform it and place it kind of where I want. All right, and then what do? We do? We change the blend mode. So blend modes are right here, right? We're on that broken glass, that image layer, and we're going to change it to multiply is everybody's favorite, and multiply. And then the opacity, right? We just lower the opacity a little bit so you can see her face come back out, right? That was basically it for this first assignment where we were superimposing an image over a portrait by creating a mask on the portrait layer and then moving the mask onto an image layer and changing the blend mode to multiply and lowering the opacity. So then we moved on and we did this one where we were superimposing 3 images over a portrait to look like a tattoo or body paint, using blend mode, multiply, and layer opacity, and then adding a slight Gaussian blur and using the warp to conform to the form of your person. So let's, yeah, I'm going to group those and turn them off for a second. Again, this is like a standard HD size document, and I just imported a portrait from the stock photos. I'm going to transform it and get it to take up the whole canvas. place it. And then we need to get images in here to superimpose as tattoos. So a good place to start is just going to like Google and finding Flash tattoo art. But just make sure that when you're searching for large, right, large images. So I just found this one. I'm going to control click and then go to copy image address. So I get the URL, come back over here and open from a URL, paste in the URL in a current project. All right, excellent. So the assignment's for 3 images superimposed. You're more than welcome to get like 3 different images in here. I'm going to do it a little bit quicker right now and just use the lasso tool and cut out 3 of these things. So I like Yoda. I'm going to quick select the Yoda and just Command X, Command V. So now Yoda's pasted on his own layer. So we got 1, and then let's move around and do this one from Toy Story. I forget this guy's name. But anyways, I'm just going to select it, making sure I'm on the Flash Tattoo, the original layer, and Command X. Oh, I guess it needs to be rasterized, but here's the trick. If you copy it, Command C, it doesn't need to be rasterized. So Command C, Command V. So now I have that guy on its own layer and a Yoda on his own layer. We need 1 more. So let's get this back up. Let's do Stitch. All right, and again, I'm just using lasso tool. I'm on that Flash Tattoo layer that's selected. Go around him, select, and Command C, Command V. And now I have, let's see, Stitch, that guy, and Yoda. Those are going to be my tattoos. This we don't need anymore. I'm going to put these on my person's face or wherever I want them. And then, so we changed the blend mode. These work really, really great when they're just black and white. And you change the blend mode to multiply because all the white will disappear and you'll be left with the black. So I'm going to do that to all of them. Change blend mode to multiply. Change blend mode to multiply. All right, so now I'm going to kind of just place them. The transform is Option Command T. Like rotate this thing and maybe make it a little bit smaller, right? And do the same thing for this guy. Kind of small. All right, and then Stitch. Let's make him a little bit bigger. All right. So we also like lowered the opacity just a tiny little bit. Well, actually, more than a tiny little bit. Mine are usually about 50% actually. So, and you want to see like a little bit of the skin come through, especially if you're trying to make it look like a real tattoo. So, yeah, that looks better. And then Stitch. All right, so the only thing we really did was get 3 images that were superimposing, and we changed the blend mode to multiply and lowered the opacity. So the next thing we did was just add a blur filter, because if you look closely, these things are like super, super sharp. Tattoos, body paint, they're not going to be like that sharp. So with the first layer selected, we're just going to filter, blur. Gaussian blur is the popular one, and that allows you to kind of control the radius, make it a little less sharp. So you just kind of use your eyes. You don't want it to be like super, super blurry, but something like this just doesn't quite look right. It's so sharp. So again, I'm on my next one from Toy Story, and filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And then keep an eye on it when you're moving the radius back and forth. I usually just like go until I went too far, obviously went too far, and then go back, and that's almost like too sharp. So you kind of have to use your eyes. Stand back from it. Hit OK. That looks a tiny little bit better. This looks a little bit more believable, but let's go. I'm going to do it again. Gaussian blur. If it helps, like, sit back from it. Like, now that looks like it really might be closer to a tattoo than, say, stitch. So we'll do stitch. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Somewhere around there looks okay to me. Here, let's see a closer look. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so again, it was multiply, blend mode, opacity, and then we just added a blur. And then the final thing we did for this project was use the warp. So let's go back up to the Yoda, right? Yoda's right here. And we're going to warp it to kind of conform to the form of this person's forehead. So warp is like a transform. So we go edit, not free transform, transform, warp. And then you have like these extra little handles, and you can kind of scoot them in, scoot them out. Generally, if something's like further away, like this is the far side of her head, it's going to be like a little bit smaller, so you might scrunch them in a little bit. Whereas like things on the like closer to you are going to be like a little bit bigger. So a bit of trial and error, but yeah, see his ear's like a lot bigger on this side, a little bit smaller on that side, and that's just to give the appearance that it's actually laying flat on the face, but the face is kind of curved and angled. So that looks okay to me. I might take the whole thing and like move it over a tiny little bit, but yeah, that was warped. And let's go to this one right here. Again, we're just warping it, going to edit, transform, and then warp. You can also try puppet warp too. It's a little bit more complicated and use like stick dots, but I'm just gonna stick to warp. Again, like if this part on the right side is closer to the camera, make it a little bit bigger, chunk it out, and the parts that are back a little bit further, I'm gonna scoot in. All right. All right. I mean, that looks a little bit better than I did a second ago. And again, these like tiny little edits like that do add up to make a difference, especially when you put them all together and then kind of zoom out like that. To me, it looks photoshopped definitely, but it's a lot better than just placing flash on top. So we got one more. We got the stitch. I put this one like kind of on her neck to get like a really good curve and see how far we can push the warp. So put it right here and go edit for transform, warp. And again, like the parts that are closer are going to bulge out, whereas parts that are further are gonna get scooted in a little bit. Oops, and I gotta get back, edit, transform, warp. Maybe like if there's a contour, like her neck is kind of curved, you can even like look at the top of the like bounding box, I guess it's called, and try to curve with it. Move these little handles so it has about the same curve as the neck. That looks too much. Looks a little bit better than it did a second ago. Kind of like push and pull. Let's see what looks right. But yeah, that's basically it for this one. We again superimposed 3 images, tried making them look like tattoos just by using the multiply blend mode, the layer opacity. We added a little blur filter, Gaussian blur on each of them. And then we use the warp, which is an edit, transform, warp. And the other one is puppet warp that you can try to use. It makes this like mesh, but that might kill your Chromebooks. So yeah, you can just stick to warp. That's fine. All right, so the last one of these is here. Use your social, cultural, historical, and personal knowledge to create a conceptual digital composite images over a person's skin and body that symbolizes an idea or creates some kind of meaning. So we can basically use the same techniques we did in these other two, like swapping masks or even blurring and warping these images to make them appear like they're on skin. But the trick is this time that we need to create some kind of like deeper meaning and symbolize something in the images that we are using. So I got this like kid, right? And these images again are coming right from in these stock photos right in Photopea. So let me turn off our instructions. So I got this kid and I enlarged him. He's got these nice big eyes. So I'm going to mask the eyes and then replace or flip the mask from this layer to a brick wall layer because we shield our children from the truth all the time. That's my concept. But yeah, anyways, I wanted to show you that you don't always have to use the Magic Cut to make a mask. I mean, that's great and can make your life a lot easier and mask real quick. But you can also do it like the old school kind of manual way, which is just in layer and then raster mask and then add raster mask. I'm just going to put reveal all so you can see everything, and then I'll paint with black for the parts that I don't want to see. So we need the eyes. The eyes are what I want to see, so I can flip the eyes on the mask of those eyes onto this other layer. So I'm really going to paint with black a lot over basically everything else. So let me just quick make a hard brush, right? Quick kind of go over the big parts. We need to make it a little bit smaller. Hopefully get pretty close to the eyes, right? And then I'm going to zoom in and maybe make the brush a lot smaller. And again, I'm just painting with black with the brush on the mask, and you see the mask changing over here. So I'll quickly go around all this stuff. All right. So I've been using like just a regular hard brush up until now, but sometimes those hard edges can be distracting, and it's obvious that it's like photoshopped or edited, manipulated. So I'm going to take the hardness of my brush like all the way down and try to get closer to just his eyes with like a softer fuzzy edge. And then like if you go too far, all you have to do is switch your foreground background colors back to white, and white is going to paint back in. And if you need to go back, you just hit X on the keyboard, is switching the foreground background colors. So paint in, paint out, paint in, paint out, just by hitting X. Right. Anyways, trying to get nice and close to these eyes and not leave any little artifacts laying around. It doesn't look terrible. All right, now let's do this one. Same thing, just using like a soft brush, painting with black to hide most of the image. We just want the eyes to appear. All right, that doesn't look terrible to me anyway. Okay, so we masked out everything except for the eyes. This is my brick wall. I'm actually going to Command Option T on this one, right? Command Option T, transform these, just get a little bit smaller so we can see like more of the texture. These eyes, right? And then yeah, I'm just flipping this mask onto my other layer, and now we have a child that can't see anything because we shield him from the truth. It looks pretty scary. Of course, you can play around with the blend modes. Oh, whoops, that's the wrong layer. You should just be on normal, I guess. So yeah, some of these get like kind of crazy. You might have fun playing. Ooh, that's weird. I'm not sure. I kind of like might just like hard light, right? So there you go. That's like one example of a conceptual composite. I don't even like hard light. I'm just gonna go with normal for right now. Okay. So my concept is that we shield our children from the truth. Maybe another one might be like candy, right? Eye candy. It's a good. It's a good concept, right? People like candy. People like looking at things that are pretty. All right, so I'm going to quick for fun make another one of these. Right, I'm just going to cover the eyes, but like again, I'm just making it smaller so I can see more of the candy and the texture, because if the pieces are real big, you're not going to see much of it. So anyways, I might even like duplicate it and shrink it and put it over that eye, and then get this other one, shrink it down. Okay, all right, so now I have two of my candy things. I'm gonna really merge them. Command E is merge down, or is it layer merge down? Great, so now they're all on the same layer. And can move the mask from one to the other. I have to delete that or hide that. So the other fun thing that maybe I should show you is, you know, these masks, you just like click them and drag them and they pop from one layer to the other, but you can duplicate a mask as well. So like, check this, on this mask, I'm gonna hold down Option and do the same thing. And when I do Option, it makes a new mask on the new layer. It's basically duplicating the mask onto another layer. So yeah, there you go. Now you have option number one, kids that are shielded from the truth, and then option number two, candy, eye candy. Hope that helps.